welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're undertaking a mission, you could say, into cellular economics.
Right.
We're diving deep into a stack of sources, detailing a, well, pretty revolutionary scientific finding about how your body manages energy, specifically the kind you want to burn off.
Yeah.
Our goal here is to give you the shortcut, the real insight into what might be the next big thing in metabolic health and, importantly, sustainable weight control.
And it's such a crucial area. I mean, for most people, weight maintenance isn't just one battle.
Yeah.
It's like a constant war of attrition, right? We usually focus on cutting calories, maybe upping the exercise.
Usual suspects.
Exactly. But the scientific holy grail, really, has always been finding a way to boost the body's own resting energy expenditure, making your body just burn more calories automatically, even when you're sleeping.
And that idea, automatically burning calories, that brings us straight to brown fat. You got to remember the basics. White fat is your storage locker, long-term reserve. Muscle, that's for immediate movement, power.
Right.
But brown fat, that's the proactive one, the metabolic good guy. It specializes in this process called thermogenesis.
Thermogenesis, yeah. Converting food energy straight into heat. Basically burning fuel just to keep you warm.
Effectively wasting calories. In a good way.
In a very good way, metabolically speaking.
Yeah.
And for decades, research has been focused on how to, turn up that furnace.
Right.
This new deep dive, though, it focuses on a breakthrough from Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. They didn't just tweak the known furnace. They actually found a previously unknown sort of secondary mechanism.
A whole other system.
A critical piece of built-in redundancy, that handles getting rid of energy. They're calling it a backup heater.
A backup heater. Okay, and that concept sounds like the core of what we need to unpack today. Because the potential benefit isn't just losing weight initially.
It's just hard enough.
Exactly.
Right.
But finding a metabolic lever that makes maintaining that loss, which is honestly the hardest part for almost everyone, making that significantly easier over the long haul.
Let's maybe start with the standard picture, how we thought brown fat worked until recently.
Okay, the textbook version.
Pretty much. The whole process was thought to center on the cell's power plants, the mitochondria. You can think of them as the main furnace in the cell.
Right, the energy factories.
And the switch, the key thing that flips this furnace from making stored energy, ATP, to just pumping out raw heat. That's a protein called uncoupling protein 1, UCP1.
UCP1, got it.
So you get cold, UCP1 gets activated, mitochondria start generating heat instead of ATP. Simple, right? That's the classic model of brown fat thermogenesis.
Okay, that sounds straightforward enough. But this is where the plot thickens, where the puzzle starts.
Exactly, because researchers knew or suspected for years that something wasn't quite adding up, something was missing.
How so?
Well, they did these experiments, clever ones, where they engineered mice whose brown fat cells completely lacked UCP1.
Took out the main switch entirely.
Took it out completely. Now, if UCP1 is the only switch for that furnace, those mice should have been, freezing cold. They shouldn't have been able to burn calories effectively for heat.
Makes sense. No switch, no heat.
And yet, they still managed to produce a surprising amount of heat. They kept their core temperature up pretty well. They were still burning fuel.
Wait, even without UCP1?
Even without UCP1. So if the primary switch was gone, something else had to be picking up the slack, right? It was kind of maddening for scientists for a while. It strongly implied the body had this crucial second system, a secret parallel way of making heat that we just hadn't properly identified.
So the big takeaway there is that the body isn't relying on just one pathway for something as vital as, burning off excess calories and staying warm.
Exactly. It's got redundancy built in, a backup plan.
Which is fascinating from a biological design perspective.
Absolutely. And that redundancy, that backup plan, is what gives us these exciting new targets for maybe helping people out therapeutically. If there's a second engine for burning fuel, we need to know what it is and, how to maybe put our foot on its accelerator.
Okay, let's unpack that mechanism then. The backup heater. The star of this new research, published in Nature, wasn't the mitochondria at all, was it?
Nope. Not the main furnace. It was a completely different little structure inside the cell. The peroxisome.
Peroxisomes. Okay, I've heard of those, but maybe not in this context. What are they exactly?
They're tiny spherical organelles, little compartments within the cell. They're known specialists, usually tasked with breaking down certain types of fats, like very long-chain fatty acids.
So more like processing units.
Yeah, or maybe part of the cell's cleanup crew detoxification system. That's how we usually thought of them. Their role in actually generating heat, thermogenesis, was pretty much overlooked until this study.
It's like finding out the janitor's closet actually has a high-efficiency backup generator running inside.
That's a great analogy, actually, because the researchers found that when brown fat gets exposed to cold, the usual signal to start burning energy, it doesn't just ramp up the mitochondria.
It does something else.
It significantly increases the number of these peroxisomes. More of these little structures pop up.
Okay, more peroxisomes when it's cold. Interesting.
But here's the real clincher. The thing that proved they were the backup. That increase in peroxisome numbers. It was much, much greater in those mice that were genetically missing UCP1.
So when the main furnace UCP1 was offline?
Exactly. The cell responded by massively boosting the number of peroxisomes. That was the moment they realized, okay, these aren't just vaguely involved. They seem to be actively taking over heat production when the main mitochondrial pathway is compromised.
So the peroxisome is the location, the backup factory.
Mm.
But what's the specific tool inside the peroxisome that's actually doing the work? Flipping the switch from storing energy to just wasting it as heat.
Right, good question. That tool is a specific enzyme found inside the peroxisome. It's called acyl-CoA oxidase 2, or ACOX2 for short.
ACOX2.
ACOX2. This protein is central to this whole new pathway. What it does is it kickstarts the breakdown of certain specific fatty acids within the peroxisome. And crucially, the way it does this breakdown process, it bypasses the normal energy storage routes.
Like making ATP.
Exactly. It bypasses that and results directly in heat production. It's like a chemical shortcut straight to the heat vent, skipping the energy savings account.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just where it happens, the peroxisome, but how ACOX2 routes the fuel. But, proving a whole new pathway like this, that takes some solid evidence, right?
Yeah.
What did the studies led by Irfan Lodi actually show?
Yeah, absolutely. They needed concrete proof, so they tackled it from both angles.
Right.
What happens if you take ACOX2 away, and what happens if you boost it?
Okay, let's start with taking it away, the deficiency model.
Right. They generated mice that were specifically missing the ACOX2 protein just in their brown fat. And the results were pretty clear-cut. These mice showed significant metabolic problems.
Like what?
Well, first, their tolerance to cold just plummeted. They couldn't generate enough heat. Second, they showed problems with how their bodies used insulin, the hormone that regulates blood sugar. Impaired insulin function.
That's not good.
Not good at all. And third, maybe most relevant for our discussion, they were significantly more likely to become obese when they were fed a high-fat diet compared to normal mice.
Wow. So taking away just this one protein, ACOX2, the backup heater switch, basically tanks their ability to handle cold and makes them prone to weight gain and insulin issues.
That's the gist of it, yeah. It really highlighted how important this pathway is, even if it's a backup.
Okay, so what about the flip side? What happens when you supercharge the backup system? Give them more ACOX2.
Now that's where the results got really exciting. They engineered another set of mice to have unusually high levels of ACOX2, again, specifically in their brown fat. Pretty much the exact opposite happened. These mice showed markedly increased heat production. They were stellar at tolerating cold.
Okay, better heating.
Better heating, yes. But more importantly for, the listeners perhaps, they showed drastically improved insulin sensitivity. Their bodies handled sugar much better. And crucially, they maintained much better weight control. They stayed leaner.
Even on the high-fat diet.
Even while eating the same high-fat diet that made the other mice obese.
Okay, that is a really substantial metabolic benefit. It sounds like boosting ACOX2 lets the body sort of neutralize some of the damage from a rich diet by just burning off the extra fuel.
Precisely. That's exactly what seems to be happening. They're fundamentally cranking up their resting energy expenditure. Their baseline calorie burn goes up because they're diverting incoming fuel through this ACOX2 pathway.
Wasting energy, like you said.
Exactly. The researchers use that term, the body is intentionally wasting energy. And in the context of weight management in our modern environment, wasting energy is actually a phenomenal advantage.
Absolutely. But how did they confirm this? I mean, measuring weight and overall temperature is one thing, but proving that ACOX2 itself was making individual cells hotter. That sounds tricky.
It is tricky, and they used some really cool cutting-edge tools to nail it down. They didn't just rely on the scale.
What did they use?
Well, first, they got incredibly specific. They used this sophisticated fluorescent heat sensor that they had actually developed themselves. It allowed them to look at individual brown fat cells under a microscope.
Wow.
And they literally watched these single brown fat cells get measurably hotter when ACOX2 was actively metabolizing its specific fatty acid fuel.
You could see the heat increase at the cellular level. That's amazing physical evidence.
It really is beautifully direct. And then they backed that up with a bigger picture view. They used an infrared thermal imaging camera on the whole mice.
Like night vision, but for heat.
Kinda, yeah. And that imaging clearly showed that the areas with brown fat in the mice lacking ACOX2 were significantly cooler. They produced less heat overall compared to the healthy mice.
So micro and macro evidence pointing straight at ACOX2 as this missing heat generator.
Exactly. It provides really strong evidence that ACOX2 is driving this alternative thermogenic pathway.
Okay, let's pivot then. The mouse data is compelling, no doubt. But, we've seen promising mouse studies before that didn't quite pan out in humans. How confident are we that this ACOX2 pathway is relevant for us?
That's always the crucial question, and the skepticism is healthy. But in this case, there's actually a good reason for optimism based on pre-existing human data.
Oh, what's that?
Well, even before this mechanism was discovered, prior studies in humans had already shown something interesting. People who naturally have higher levels in their blood of the specific types of fatty acids that ACOX2 uses as fuel.
The fuel for this backup heater.
Exactly. Those people tend to statistically have lower body mass indices, lower BMIs.
Ah, so there was already a correlation known in humans between the fuel and being leaner.
Correct. There was a correlation, but nobody really knew why. What this new research does is provide the mechanism. It identifies ACOX2 as the likely reason why having more of that specific fuel translates into a metabolic advantage. It's the engine that burns that fuel.
Okay, that connection is really important. It suggests the whole system, fuel and engine, is likely functioning in people too, maybe just at different levels in different individuals.
That's the thinking, yes. It's probably already there, waiting to potentially be boosted.
So what does this mean for intervention? If we can boost this pathway, we might be looking at a way to support metabolic health that's, well, frankly, easier to stick with long-term than constant grinding dieting.
That's the hope. And there seem to be two main avenues emerging, both targeting this ACOX2 pathway. The first is looking at dietary approaches or maybe nutraceuticals.
Food-based solutions.
Potentially. And the second is the more traditional pharmaceutical route, looking for drugs.
Let's talk about the dietary side first, because that feels more immediate, maybe more accessible for people listening. If ACOX2 needs specific fuel, what is it? Where do we get it?
Well, this is actually one of the fascinating parts. The specific fatty acids that ACOX2 seems to prefer are found in some pretty common places.
Like what?
Things like dairy products. They're also present in significant amounts in human breast milk, which is interesting from a developmental perspective.
Right.
And importantly, they can also be produced by certain types of gut microbes. Your gut bacteria can actually make this fuel.
Okay, that's huge. Dairy, breast milk, gut microbes. It suggests that a natural, non-drug intervention might actually be feasible.
It certainly opens the door. You could imagine potentially boosting this pathway through targeted changes in diet, or maybe developing a specialized probiotic to encourage the growth of those specific microbes.
Or even a nutraceutical, like a supplement containing those specific fatty acids.
Exactly. A supplement could deliver a concentrated dose. It shifts the paradigm a bit, doesn't it? From just eat less of everything towards strategically eat more of the right things to fuel this specific energy-burning pathway.
It really does. Moving from pure restriction to maybe metabolic optimization.
That's a good way to put it, optimization. The key here seems to be specificity. You're not just trying to activate brown fat in general, which often involves things like uncomfortable cold exposure to trigger UCP1.
Right, the cold showers approach.
Yeah. Instead, you're potentially supplying the specific fuel tailored for the ACOX2 backup engine.
But okay, if these fatty acids are in dairy, for example, how simple is it? Could someone just start drinking more milk and expect to fire up their ACOX2? Or is the amount needed likely much higher than what you'd get normally?
And that is the million-dollar question for the next phase of human research. We have the correlation more fuel associated with lower BMI, but proving causation showing that deliberately increasing intake leads to a sustained, meaningful boost in ACOX2 activity and weight control, that's the next big hurdle.
So we don't know the dosage yet, basically.
Exactly. It might be that natural food levels provide a baseline, but to get a real therapeutic effect, you might need those more concentrated nutraceutical forms or specific probiotics. We need clinical trials in humans to figure that out.
Okay, makes sense. What about the other angle then? The pharmaceutical one. Finding a drug. That seems more direct, maybe?
It's definitely a more direct approach, potentially. The research there is focused on screening for and identifying specific drug compounds, small molecules probably, that could directly activate the ACOX2 enzyme itself.
Flipping the switch directly rather than just providing more fuel.
Precisely. Bypassing the need for dietary changes or relying on the gut microbiome lottery. If scientists can develop a safe and effective molecule that basically turns up the ACOX2 dial.
Then you'd have a direct, presumably reliable way to increase resting energy expenditure, right? Independent of what someone eats or how much they exercise that day.
That's the goal. And that potential, targeting the energy expenditure side of the equation, that's what feels so potentially transformative here.
Yeah, because for decades, pretty much every weight loss strategy has been fighting against hunger, deprivation, willpower.
The body's drive to conserve energy.
Exactly. If we can flip a cellular switch that helps the body harmlessly waste some of those incoming calories as heat, we suddenly have a tool that works with the body's processes, potentially, to address that really difficult maintenance phase where most diets fail.
It could offer support for weight control that's fundamentally just easier to maintain over time. The body is always fighting back against weight loss, trying to protect its energy stores. That leads to that frustrating regain cycle.
The yo-yo effect.
Yeah. A continuous, gentle boost to ACOX2 activity might help to kind of reset that metabolic thermostat, making it easier to keep weight off once it's lost.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this deep dive then. We started with a classic view of brown fat relying on mitochondria and UCP1.
The main furnace.
Right. But then we moved beyond that to uncover this crucial backup system involving peroxisomes and, specifically, the protein ACOX2.
The backup heater.
This alternate furnace, specifically designed, it seems, for burning certain fatty acids directly as heat.
And we have to stress, the path forward. Mouse data is strong. The human correlation is suggestive. But the real goal now is rigorous testing.
Proving it works in people.
Proving it. We need those clinical studies to show definitively whether interventions based on ACOX2, be they dietary, probiotic, nutraceutical, or pharmaceutical, can actually prove effective in helping people manage weight and improve their metabolic health long-term. Correlation is a great starting point.
But causation is the prize.
Causation through targeted intervention. Exactly. That's the finish line we need to reach.
So a final thought then, maybe for everyone listening, as you think about your own metabolic health, maybe consider this shift in perspective. Could the key to sustainable health and weight management lie not just in restricting what goes in,
the calorie counting grind,
but also in strategically feeding your cells the precise tools, like these specific fatty acids, that they need to efficiently divert and burn fuel through this newly discovered ACOX2 backup heater? Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.